Hey guys, what is up? We're back with a little bit more sponsored Zenonzard content. Zenonzard is a very interesting card game that you can play on Android and iOS, or if you don't want to play it on your phone, you can actually use an emulator to play it on your PC as well. Basically, the sort of gimmick of this game is that you are playing an asynchronous PvP against opponents' trained AIs while you are sort of co-oping with your own AI that has a algorithm that is based on the machine learning that it's done off of playing with you. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means when you're playing Zenonzard, you are going to be playing against opponents' trained algorithms instead of the opponent themselves. So you don't have to wait for turns to be done. There's no roping. Opponents will always play immediately for that reason. And also, every time you go to make a move, your codeman, your AI that you've kind of been training and is learning from you, is going to be able to suggest things to you as a player. Every single decision point, they'll say, oh, I think you should do this, and you can choose whether to listen to them or not. Personally, I think this is actually really cool. You're going to be learning from your codeman, your algorithm, as they point out things that you didn't see or didn't think of, and they in turn are going to be learning from you, which is to say, you know, as you make your own plays and deviate from their set path, their neural network, or however it works in the machine learning, is going to basically start adjusting and start getting smarter, and effectively you're both kind of like teaching each other. It actually feels like a real sort of like companionship or a cooperation. There are currently 16 different codemen to choose from. They are starting out a little bit different, of course, and as you can see, they're kind of like every trope that you'd expect from, you know, sort of like anime culture. There's like, you know, maids and nurses and that kind of thing. Something that I think is pretty funny though is that there's a neat AI in this case, Hinaria Darkend, and this is the one that I've actually chosen for now. A shut-in addicted to online gaming. She has a lackluster personality and often talks to herself. Perfect for me. Your codemen can also help you deck build, which is pretty interesting. Now, there are 6 different colors, and today we're going to be playing Kanatana, the yellow color, which is kind of focused on like fast speed, like combat tricks or like trap, basically, sort of gameplay. And let's go ahead and see what Hina thinks of our deck and how she would change it. All right, so here we have our current Kanatana deck. Let's go ahead and see what Hina has to say about this, and see if we're gonna end up changing any of cards. I'll try out going by her recommendation and see exactly what happens. So she is suggesting to add Charged Hippo. I actually haven't seen this card yet. Draw opponent's minutes to 200. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Duskers the Devastator and Traveler of the Wastes. In exchange for these, yeah, no, I'm actually fine with this. We do tend to have usually more than enough Priests of Kanatana, so this looks like a solid swap. Let's go ahead and try this out. So we're just gonna go ahead and make that swap and then save the deck. And we can go straight into a battle from there. All right, we've got our game starting out here. We're gonna be against this guy. I actually haven't seen this exact codeman before. And we've got our opening hand. So Hina is suggesting kicking these ones. You can see any play that, you know, we're thinking about making, she will suggest, and that'll be outlined with this like blue glow here. So she wants to mulligan these away while keeping these. This is actually very, very interesting because she's suggesting keeping some pretty late game cards here, the 6 mana one and the 4 mana sort of like return spell. I'm actually going to go ahead and mulligan them all in this case. Try to find some things that are going to hit a little bit earlier. Because we've got a fairly heavy deck, and even after mulliganing them all, we still did end up finding a lot of cards that are going to be coming onto the board a little bit later. So as it goes, I'll be trying to kind of explain, you know, as much as I can. So it'll help that she's actually, you know, basically giving us advice every single turn. So we don't have anything we can play on this turn because we don't have any field units to be able to play as colored mana. We're just going to go ahead and end our turn, which of course is going to allow us to get the second point of mana next turn, right? Because you get the gray mana automatically. or neutral in this case. So they're going to play their first unit, which is a Horned Walrus, apparently. So this is 300 battle points and 1 DP. So what that means is when it goes to combat with another unit, 300 is its score, and the unit with the bigger score wins. DP is the ability to deal damage directly when you're hitting face or one of the forces on the side. Okay? So here we've got a couple of plays. We've got a Goblin Soldier and a Goblin Soldier we just drew. Because we've got the neutral mana, we can just go ahead and play this out. It's just a nice kind of like 2 mana neutral play, and it's effectively completely tied in this case with the Horned Walrus, right? It's 301. So basically what this means is if they go to combat, then they're both going to end up dying. Okay? So they're going to go ahead and declare an attack. I'm going to go ahead and declare a block. Now, if they have a flash spell, they could use it there, but in this case, looks like they don't have anything that's going to be used. Okay, and they're going to summon a couple of more units and deal a little bit of damage to our left forest here. This one's the Force of Fusion. Okay, so we did actually draw our field minion here. This is the Priest of Kanatana, and that will allow us access to basically these yellow mana cards. But we're still suggesting to go with a Goblin Soldier, which makes sense because the yellow mana is only useful for the spells right now, which just don't have actual applications. We drew a pretty late game hand. Thank God we kicked as aggressively as we did. We have these 5 and 6 mana units, and these are pretty strong, but they are not going to be played for a while, so we're just gonna have to chill for now. But what we can do is we can unbench our Priest of Kanatana because we aren't using it for its yellow mana, so we lose the ability to, you know, tap into that 1 yellow mana, but we gain a unit, which is actually pretty powerful, so we can go ahead and block with it. So yeah, we're mostly just trying to stall and survive based on like this hand and based on how the deck plays. So basically they're attacking here with a 300 BP that just has a when summoned effect. So I do have the ability to block it out. Hina is actually suggesting we pass and let the attack happen anyway. This one's quite interesting. I do have the ability to block this here. I'm gonna go ahead and block this and see what happens. Maybe Hina knows something I don't about the situation. Something that was more important to keep my unit for. But it looks like we just kind of blocked and traded, and that feels pretty good to me. I don't think I am really regretting that. So now that we get +1, we have 1 extra mana this turn, and now what we can do is we can send our field minion back to the base, right? Back to the mana pool, right? Which is fairly good just because, you know, basically this is how you can do it. You can be very, very flexible in terms of, you know, whether you're using it as a blocker or whether you are actually using it just to be on field, right? If that makes sense. So because we sent it back to the base, what that means is because the mana refreshes at the end of our turn, this means we can actually use our surprise attack spells. So this is why we ended up sending it back to the base here. And now we can use the things that Kanatana mostly does, which is these kind of like flash sort of combat trick type things. So we're just going to go ahead and I'll use the one on the left because this is what she says. They're the same card, of course. And we'll just surprise attack. So we're going to go ahead and give this unit plus 300 BP, and then block his attack. So basically just kind of like your standard combat trick, exactly how you'd expect that to work. Kanatana also has several units that can be played during that flash phase as well. It's called the swoop keyword, so you can do like swoop blocks as well. And this is kind of the thing that they're most known for, just playing a lot of cards like these flash spells and swoop units during the opponent's turn. So now, you know, we get to our next turn, and we have the ability to move our unit, our shielded goblin, which is just kind of like a 300 unit. We can move this back to our base. And in addition to the mana we get at the start of the turn, now we have the ability to play out one of our big boys. In this case, the Leviathan, right? So this is kind of like the first big unit that we're actually able to play. And you'll notice this card we just drew, this is the swoop, one of the swoops that I was talking about. So we do actually have the ability to play that a little bit later. In this case, we can just go ahead and end our turn for now though. So, we get our mana. Keep in mind, we get mana during the opponent's turn as well, so we do have the ability to play for these flashes and for these swoops. Depending on what he does, we'll play one or the other card here. Now, he's attacking with a 500, a couple of passives. Alright, nothing that's actually really going to impact this too much. We do have the ability to... yeah, let's go ahead and swoop this out, why not? Now, unfortunately, we only have one yellow mana, so we don't have the ability to play both of our cards here. We can't play this one on top of that, but we can go ahead and swoop while we can, and then take the block on his big unit attacking. And now, his attacks really aren't so good. We do have an additional block here that we're just going to go ahead and take. Kind of weird that he's taking these attacks. Now, you might ask, why didn't I save my block for the shielded goblin? And in this case, it's because even though the shielded goblin has more BP than the other unit, the 200 one, it has 0 DP, right? So the shielded goblin can't deal damage to face. So we don't really have to worry about its BP in that case, right? If that makes sense? Okay, so now she's suggesting we can just go ahead and start attacking right away. I'm actually pretty down with this. Let's go ahead. Like, we actually own the board pretty well at this point. It's the flash phase, but of course we don't have to use our spell. And now our big dragon is getting it in with 2 DP, so he's gonna have to either sacrifice a unit or take 2 damage here. And now, because, you know, there's no combat phase or anything like that, what we can do is we can just keep summoning more units and keep attacking a little bit more. In this case, the most important thing with this hand is just make sure that our yellow mana is able to stay here on base. She's actually suggesting passing instead of playing the shielded goblin here. Yeah, I'm fine with that. The shielded goblin actually isn't really doing that much in this circumstance. Okay, so just gonna go ahead and go to his turn, and he's just gonna go ahead and develop a couple of more units here. He's playing the blue, basically, and they play a lot of like sort of spells and mobility sorts of things. So they're taking an attack, and she's suggesting that we just pass here. Attacking with the Songbird of Poseidon. So yeah, this is basically the flash opportunity, and this is before the blocking is declared, so we'll pass the flash, because we don't really want to use that there. And yeah, we can just go ahead and block with this. This is perfectly fine. They're taking kind of weird attacks. It looks like they are, in this case, a fairly underdeveloped AI. Okay, so we lost 1 force, and when a force dies, you get to basically get a base minion card. So you kind of like ramp when the special effects from the forces go away. Okay, so yeah, we'll just go ahead and let that attack happen. And it's okay if this force dies. They're kind of like trying to go too much for these side strategies. So she's suggesting in this case going for the flash. That's actually kind of interesting. This one's got resurge. Yeah, let's follow her advice and see what happens. I'm interested in where this is going. Okay, so she's suggesting giving this one a buff, and this one being returned to hand. Alright, and then she's suggesting replaying it. Alright, so she saw something I didn't. She wanted to return the swoop to hand to be able to play the swoop again, to be able to then block with a unit that was otherwise tapped out. That's actually interesting. And to accomplish that, we had to sort of like waste the BP buff on a unit that was already tapped out. That's actually really cool. That ended up making a lot of sense there. So yeah, this is a really good example of like what I was saying earlier about kind of like, you know, you are sort of teaching your code men, and they are teaching you at the same time, right? It's a very interesting sort of relationship you have with this little algorithm that's evolving with you. Because they get smarter as you get smarter, and you get smarter as they get smarter. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and take this attack here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So she's suggesting moving this mana to the field, basically just allowing us, you know, the ability to attack with the unit. The order of operations doesn't end up mattering too much here. We do have the ability to basically, you know, start buffing the board. We've got this. All your other units get plus 100 DP, which is pretty good. We can play this out as well. It doesn't matter too much like the order in which we do these, because this one's the passive. So we'll go ahead and get our priest to the field, and now we've got, you know, the full 5 board, right? So we can go ahead and just start kind of like slimming in with these. The nice thing about this passive is now all my units have 400 plus, which means the shielded goblin won't be able to protect him. So they're gonna have to start blocking, otherwise they're taking too much damage. And the biggest priority to block is the stuff that has like 2 DP, so they really have to be blocking these, otherwise they're just gonna be dying super fast. So she wants to end the turn instead of attacking with a Howling Direwolf. It looks like she's scared of a potential trick that the opponent could have, and that would kill our passive. Oh no, wait, actually, this actually just can't attack this turn. I don't know. I think attacking the side force is actually probably worth it, but she just kind of wants to go face, so I guess she just doesn't really mind. Yeah, we could just go face. I'm alright with that. Let's go ahead and play the goblin at this point. We can override probably the bird. Yeah, we're saying override the bird. Alright. Yeah, her game plan was to basically just try to go face and ignore the forces on the side. And because of that, if that is our game plan, she does have a good point. Maybe just ending this game a little bit earlier is going to be a bit more reliable, because I do need to make sure that I've got, you know, some additional blockers here. So luckily, this shield goblin is getting the buff from our wolf here, Howling Direwolf, which allows it to kind of just win that combat for free. And I'm not too worried about the opponent attacking us here, since we have really high life. And every time they take an attack, you know, it's just something that they won't be able to block with on our turn. And because of that, they can't really be as aggressive as they want to be here. So now we can just start basically trying to lethal here. Now, this is an interesting one. I'm suggesting using reverse wind offensively. And let's go ahead and do it. So we can reverse wind, and this is kind of like Will of Ionia, right? We are just returning this to the hands. And of course, this is resolving before the block phase, so it becomes, in this case, unblockable. And because their unit isn't swoop, they can't play it again. So we're just going to go ahead and close out the game. Their codeman goes to 0 health, and we won. So in a lot of cases, it can turn out to be in a little bit of a race like that. But yeah, it's really interesting. There's like a real sort of ebb and flow to the dynamic. It actually does feel like a bit of a team where, yeah, you're learning from each other. Her algorithm improves as I make smart plays that will teach her that, you know, certain things are good to do and certain things are bad to do. And she'll see things that I don't realize. But also, it's going to be really interesting when we both have sort of different long-term ideas about how to approach the game. Kind of like that one turn where I was attacking the force on the side, where she just kind of wanted to go face. And there can definitely be some weird losses that come down to kind of like effectively almost miscommunication in that way. And here's the record from that game as well. We can see here how the algorithm is basically adapting to every single turn, and the decision points that led to those game states, and the score in which they're like internally evaluating it, right? So this is how the algorithm learns, basically, which is like, you know, you're doing very well in this game state, you're doing very well in this game state, and this game state is a function of this decision point. So it'll start making those decision points that start leading to more favorable game states long term, right? So it's always, I don't know, this sort of like AI stuff is actually something that I'm personally just very interested in. So it's very cool to see some games, and I've seen some games of other genres kind of like experimenting with this concept and trying to push it a little bit more into the mainstream, but it's super interesting to me. So you can try downloading Zenonzard now from the links in the pinned comment to participate in the ongoing July events, where you can earn up to 240 of the 500 cards for free. You can also check them out on socials, Twitter and Facebook using hashtag ZenonzardACI, and I'll be doing a few more videos for Zenonzard on this channel as well. I actually did one already that was kind of built around the idea of a more introductory version if you were a little bit kind of like lost or wanted a better intro explanation. That one's going to be linked in the pinned comment as well.